Yes, I'm back. Or hello again. There's an article at the membership site, and the URL is learn.dynamic-tarot.com. And the article is about getting the questioner to pick two numbers before the reading and using the numbers chosen as a starting point for the reading. And a few people left comments at the membership site, and I'd like to talk about a couple of them in a bit of detail. And this is so that we can do better readings, I think. So Danielle said, what if the person already knows what the numbers represent? Can you get an accurate reflection of what's going on, because the person already maybe has an idea of what the numbers mean? And Anne said, what if the questioner doesn't agree with what you tell them about the numbers they choose? So I want to look at those questions in some detail later in the video, but first I should describe the method. And I like this method because when somebody asks a question for a reading, let's say they want to know what's going to happen in this particular relationship, you don't know if they're confident about the relationship or optimistic or anxious or depressed, or whether they don't care, or whether they're not real. They're just asking the question because they think they ought to, but they really want to ask about something else. You don't know. But it would be useful to know the person's state of mind at the beginning before you answer the question. And getting the two numbers gives you a starting point, as well as it gets the questioner involved in doing the reading. And it gives the two numbers that the person gives you will give you a context. They'll also give you a background against which to do the reading. And this is useful. Because let's say somebody chooses 9 and 15, right? So that's the Hermit and the Devil. And maybe you don't tell them anything about what those numbers or what those cards would represent. So they want to know in the reading if they're ever going to have a good relationship. So you shuffle and you get, let's say, the Ace of Cups and the Lovers. And you say to them, yes, it's going to be good. You're going to meet somebody and have a good relationship. The thing is, if they choose 9 for the Hermit for isolation and 15 for the Devil for feeling trapped, and you tell them, yes, you're going to have a good relationship, are they going to believe you? There's going to be doubt in their mind. And maybe they think, well, it'd be nice, but I don't think it's really going to happen. So they're not going to have that much confidence in the answer that they get. But if they pick 9 and 15 and you take a few minutes to talk to them about the Hermit and about the importance of looking at looking at in your past, or looking to what's happened in the past and keeping what worked and getting rid of what didn't work. And about the Devil representing not giving into temptation, or not doing what you know you don't really want to do. Then if the person is given information about those two types of activities, then when you say to them, okay, we've got the Ace of Cups and the Lovers, you are going to meet somebody. The person who hears you're going to meet somebody has got a slightly different understanding now, because you told them about the Hermit and the Devil, right? Or so let's say somebody chooses 1 and 21. We've got the Magician and the World. This is a person who has ideas and imagination and who's going places and has confidence from 1 and 21. So if difficult cards come up, you can talk to them about what they represent. Whereas somebody who chooses 6 and 15, right, they're at crossroads from the Lovers card, and they're going to be tempted into doing it, and they're going to feel trapped in the future, and they want to avoid that. So cards of upset, let's say, for somebody who chooses 6 and 15, maybe you can't speak with as much confidence that they're going to handle the situation well if they choose 6 and 15. Whereas somebody choosing 1 and 21, you know that if there's a problem, they're going to see it as an obstacle or as a stepping stone to a solution rather than a major stumbling block. So I think we want to have a better idea of what's going on with a reading. If we can get an idea of the shape the questioner is in or the condition that they're in, or that they're going to be in, given that the two numbers that you choose can represent what's coming up as well. It means we're going to do a better job of answering the question. So to reply to Danielle, what do you do if the person is familiar with the tarot so you don't get a random number when they choose? So somebody told me about an online tarot reading. So the question was about a friend, not the husband, the friend who might become more than a friend, if you know what I mean. So the Emperor came up in the answer, and the questioner thought it was interesting that the tarot seemed to know what was going on, because the Emperor representing a strong man, for instance, that came up. And the Emperor card certainly can point to a relationship with a strong individual. And this is what the question was asking about. She was wondering whether to take up with this new person. However, taking up with a new person was only part of the situation or the condition that she was in. So judgment could have come up. So we could have said the question was about making a decision that involved a fresh start or a new lease on life. And that would have described the question quite well. Or the Hangman could have come up. And this would have pointed to her having a sense of delay and an inability to act. And that too would have described the question quite well. Or the Hermit could have come up. So the questioner was struggling with questions of isolation and relationship and feeling alone with their problem. And that would have described the question well. So the Emperor came up, but we should control ourselves when we see cards and not get carried away. Because we should remember that every card is a story to tell, and every card can contain words of wisdom or have significance. Because any card will point to some particular aspect of a situation, or it's going to help us zero in on an important point to consider. And I think this is the value of the tarot, that the cards that come up are pertinent. They tell you what belongs with what. So the cards that come up are important to consider for the answer to that question, for that questioner at that time. Because you can ask, the same person can ask the same question tomorrow, and you may get a very different answer. Not because today's answer is wrong, but because the questioner has changed a little or a lot, or because it's now important or logical to look at some other side of the story or another part of the situation. So if you ask me to pick a number between 0 and 22, and I know that you're going to tell me that what you're going to tell me is based on the major trump, is it a problem that I already know the symbolism of the numbers? So maybe I consciously choose a number I want, or consciously avoid numbers that I don't want. It doesn't have to be a problem. Because if I'm looking for inspiration, right, I might choose 17 for the star. I can know what I want, which is inspiration. And I tell you the number that will lead to a discussion about my current interests. Or I might feel trapped and hemmed in, and I want to have a bit more freedom. So I can choose 15 for the devil or 12 for the hanged man in order to get your ideas about how to get free of weights that are holding me down. Or your ideas on how to deal constructively with delay and suspension. So knowing the symbolism of the numbers doesn't have to be a barrier to getting something important to talk about. Anne's question was about what if the person doesn't agree with what you say about the numbers? So let's say they pick 4 and 14, right? For example, so you talk about the Emperor and the Temperance card, and maybe you talk about taking charge of a situation and paying attention to how people and things combine with each other, right? The Temperance card. So that can produce strength or weakness, and you act appropriately. And then they say, well, that sounds okay, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. So what do? I'd like to tell you about Sue Bryce, who is a photographer from New Zealand, and she has a video on YouTube, 1 hour and 4 minutes, about how to confront fear. And it's very good. You should watch it. Because at one point she talks about how she came to understand that she wasn't a victim, and it was something was going wrong in a relationship. It wasn't really the other person's fault. And it wasn't really to do with the other person. It was her own way of viewing what was going on that was causing the problem. Right? The faults we see in others are our own faults, says Edgar Cayce. So there was one point in the story, in the video, where she talks about, there was this fellow she met, and she really hated him. She didn't like him at all. And she figured out, okay, there's something the matter with me, but she couldn't figure out what it was. And she mentioned this at one point to a mutual friend. And the friend said, I can understand that because you're both very insecure. And at that moment, Sue was on the phone. She had to put the phone down because the friend, observing that they were both insecure, Sue and the fellow, really hit home, right? And she realized that was what was going on, but she wasn't expecting it. So, but she realized, or she knew, that we need other people to teach us about us. So to reply to Anne, if the question doesn't relate to what you say about the two numbers, ask them to remember it, because it can make sense later. And you can tell Sue's story if you want, or if you've got a personal example of when something happened, but you didn't appreciate it until much later. Or it was only later that you understood what was really going on. And that could be the same kind of thing that's happening with the questioner who doesn't relate to the numbers that were chosen. And then what you tell them, okay, think about it and remember this, and then you move on and answer the questions. You know the numbers and what they show, you the reader, right? So you remember the two numbers that were chosen as you talk about the cards that answer the question. So keep them in the back of your mind during the reading, and you're going to know better what to make of the cards that are actually in the answer. Because the numbers are for the questioner, but they can also be for the reader. So I'm going to do a rough transcript of this video of what I've been saying, but I'm going to make changes to it so that it reads better. And I'll put it into the text and articles section at the membership site. So it'll be there if you want to read it. And you can cut and paste a copy if you want to. And this could be useful for making notes so that you can begin to develop ideas to try in readings of your own. Or maybe you realize that having gone through the text, that maybe you're not so sure about what you would say about a particular card that somebody chooses. So let's say you realize that if somebody chooses 7, you're not going to know what to say. So what you do, or you would struggle to think of things to say. So what you do is you take some time over the next few days or the following days to come up with 3 or 4 threads or ideas that you could use if somebody chooses the number 7. So in this way, you've recognized a weakness in yourself and you've done something to shore it up. And so you could have more confidence that you know what you're doing in a reading. And you can know that if when you ask the person to choose 2 numbers, you're going to know what sense to make of them. And you're going to be able to put the questioner in their position so they understand their own situation better. And then they're going to be able to navigate their way out of it. That's it for the moment. I'll have something else next week. So look out for a video then. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.